In this video, we'll discuss sections 1 through 3 of Chapter 18. Chapter 18 is all about electrochemistry. We're going to start with galvanic cells. Galvanic cells are also known as voltaic cells or just batteries. And these are devices, as you may know, where chemical energy is changed into electrical energy. Chemical energy is the energy stored in the bonds of chemical compounds, and electrical energy is the energy resulting from the flow of electric charge. Galvanic cells use thermodynamically favored or spontaneous redox reactions to produce a current that can be used to do work. The reason we need redox reactions is because we need a transfer of electrons. Here is a very basic setup of a galvanic cell. We have two compartments with solutions in them. Each solution has a metal electrode inserted, and the electrodes in the two compartments are connected by a wire. Also connecting the compartments can be either a salt bridge or a porous disc. A salt bridge usually contains a soluble salt, a strong electrolyte that is good at conducting electricity. And a porous disc would have small little openings that would allow ions to flow between the two compartments. Here again is what a salt bridge and a porous disc entails, but it is important to note that it is ions that flow between the two compartments, either through the salt bridge or porous disc. You don't need both. It is not electrons that are flowing. We need a salt bridge or a porous disc to make sure that charge does not build up in one of the compartments. If charge does build up in one of the compartments, then the reaction stops. Those electrodes in the compartments are referred to as anodes and cathodes. An anode is where oxidation occurs. So a little way you can remember that is an ox. The cathode is where the reduction occurs. You can remember that by red cat. Remember, when we have oxidation, electrons are lost. So the electrons are going to travel through this wire from the anode to the cathode. Remember, when electrons are gained, that is reduction, and that occurs at the cathode. If the solutions are allowed to come in direct contact with each other, then the electrons would just be transferred directly, and then we don't get any useful work, and we just get heat released instead. So we need this wire to help us transfer the electrons from one compartment to the other, always from anode to cathode, and then we can hook something into the wire to get some work out of this chemical reaction. One thing we want to be able to talk about with galvanic cells is cell potential, or E cell. This is the driving force on the electrons. It's also referred to as an electromotive force. It is measured in volts, and this is a unit of electrical potential. It is the number of joules of work per coulomb of charge transferred. We can measure voltage using a voltmeter. Here again is just a basic galvanic cell with a voltmeter hooked into the wire, and this reading here would be in volts. That reading is the difference in voltage between the two electrodes of our galvanic cell. Each compartment of a galvanic cell has a half reaction that added together gives us an overall redox reaction. There is a standard reduction potential or voltage for each half reaction. And if you add together the voltage at the cathode plus the voltage at the anode, you get the cell potential or the voltage for the cell. The standard reduction potentials or voltages are usually given in a table for each half reaction. Remember, again, standard means 1 molar for the concentration of the solutions, 1 atmosphere if we have gases, 25 degrees Celsius or 298 Kelvin, room temperature. So all the reactions are written as reductions. We need 1 oxidation and 1 reduction. So that usually means we're going to have to take 1/2 reaction and reverse it, turn it from a reduction into an oxidation. So how do we choose? We are looking for the half reaction with the largest positive potential or voltage to remain the reduction. The other half reaction will be flipped to become our oxidation. Ultimately, we want a positive voltage or positive cell potential when we add together the two half reactions. When we add together the two half reactions, we want the number of electrons transferred to be the same. So sometimes we might have to multiply a half reaction by an integer to equalize the number of electrons transferred. However, we will never touch the cell potential for that particular half reaction. Here is a table of some standard reduction potentials from your textbook. You can see we have many half reactions, and then the cell potential or the voltage is given here. This table has many positive cell potentials for the reduction. There are some over here that are negative. And here is the rest of the table. Let's do an example. Let's say we have these two half reactions that are going to make up our galvanic cell. You can see the cell potential is given in volts, but both are written as reductions where electrons are being gained. In one half reaction, electrons have to be lost, and then in the other half reaction, the electrons have to be gained. They can't both remain reductions. So we're going to look at the half reaction with the most positive cell potential to remain the reduction. So that means we are going to leave this iron half reaction as the reduction. The half reaction with the copper, we're going to turn into the oxidation. So we flip it. And then the cell potential or the voltage flips in sign as well. So that is going to become a negative 0.34 volts. Before we add together the two half reactions, we have to make sure that the number of electrons gained and lost are equal. You can see that there are 2 electrons in the copper half reaction and only 1 electron in that iron half reaction. So we actually have to multiply that iron half reaction by 2 to equalize the number of electrons. However, we do not do anything to the cell potential. We add together the half reactions, canceling out the electrons, and here is our overall balanced chemical equation for this redox reaction. For the cell potential, we add together 0.77 plus negative 0.34, and we get 0.43 volts. A shortened way to represent a galvanic cell is to use line notation. It looks like this. On the left, we have the anode, and on the right, we have the cathode. So these two parts of the line notation go along with what's happening in the anode, and these two parts are what's happening with the cathode. They are separated by a double line. And then there is a single line separating the components of the anode and the cathode. If you know the concentration of any aqueous solution, that is usually included in the line notation, but we do not see it here. All right, so now let's just briefly review all of the things that we can talk about pertaining to galvanic cells. We can talk about the cell potential or the voltage. That should always be positive. We can write the balanced chemical equation for the galvanic cell. We can include the direction of electron flow. That should always be anode to cathode. And we can label the anode and the cathode in a diagram of a galvanic cell. We can also label what is the identity of each electrode and what ions do we have in solution in each compartment. If we are ever missing an electrode, a metal, usually we can use an inert conductor. Something like platinum would be great for that if we are missing some kind of conducting solid. Okay, so let's do a little sketch of a galvanic cell. I'm going to make my compartment on the left my anode, my compartment on the right the cathode, although it doesn't really matter. However, electrons always flow from anode to cathode. It looks like we've got a silver half reaction and a copper half reaction that we're going to focus on. I'm going to pull the cell potentials or the voltages from that table that we had a few slides ago. Here are the two half reactions written as reductions. 0.34 volts for that copper half reaction and 0.80 volts for that silver half reaction. We're going to keep the silver half reaction as the reduction since it is the most positive value. We are going to then turn the copper half reaction into the oxidation. I'm going to flip it around. My voltage becomes negative. Before I add these two half reactions together, I do need to equalize the number of electrons. So for that silver half reaction, I am going to multiply by 2. I'm going to leave the voltage untouched, and then my electrons cancel out, and I can add these two half reactions together. Here's my redox reaction, balanced, and my cell potential is 0.46 volts. Now I can label each compartment of my galvanic cell with what's included based on the oxidation and reduction. So remember, anox and red cat can tell us where we want to put the different half reactions. So oxidation we want to put in the anode, and reduction we want to put in the cathode. I've labeled each electrode and the concentration of the ion that's in each solution. And here is the line notation with the anode on the left and the cathode on the right, separated by that double line. I've included the concentration of the ions in solutions since that was provided. The last thing I want to talk about is the flow of ions through the salt bridge. Remember, we need that, otherwise charge will build up in the compartments and the reaction will stop. Anions are going to flow toward the anode and cations toward the cathode. You might be saying, I don't see any anions in our diagram, and that's true. We don't have them labeled. However, copper ion and silver ion doesn't just exist by itself in solution. There will be some kind of anion that accompanies it. And so any anions that you have will flow toward the anode because we are producing copper ion in that half reaction, and opposites attract. Cations are going to flow toward the cathode because silver ion will be reacted and turned into silver, and we will have more anions than cations in that compartment. We usually utilize galvanic cells to do work. However, energy is always going to be wasted, so the maximum amount of work that actually happens is always less than what you would calculate. Here is the equation that we can use to calculate the maximum cell potential for a galvanic cell. But again, remember, we will never get that maximum amount of calculated work out of that cell. This is in your reference packet. We're looking at delta G, that's our change in free energy, equal to negative, make sure you pay attention to that negative sign, N, which is your number of moles of electrons that are going to be transferred through your wire, times a constant that's called a Faraday. This is also in your reference packet. And that is multiplied times the voltage, or the cell potential. So let's calculate the delta G for this redox reaction that we could be using in our galvanic cell. You can see that copper ion becomes copper atom, and it can do that through gaining 2 electrons. If I look in the tables a few slides ago, I see that's 0.34 volts. Iron atoms are turning into iron cations, so that's a loss of 2 electrons. And pulling from the table, it's written as a reduction, but it's clearly an oxidation because we are losing electrons. And so the negative 0.44 volts that I see in the table, I'm going to make positive. So I'm going to add these 2 voltages together. I have the same number of electrons gained and lost, so I don't have to worry about that. And my cell potential is 0.78 volts. Now I can calculate my delta G. The number of moles of electrons transferred was 2, so I'm going to do negative 2 times my Faraday constant times my voltage of 0.78 volts. Here's the answer, but what are the units? Well, a volt is 1 joule per coulomb of charge. And so this answer would be in joules. Typically, though, delta G is in kilojoules, so we'll divide by 1,000. We'll call it negative 150 kilojoules per mole of reaction. So remember, for a thermodynamically favored or spontaneous reaction, we want a negative delta G, which we do have. And we also want a positive cell potential, which we do have. And that is why that negative sign in the equation is so important.